Happy, what is it, October 14th, I think? It's Tyler coming at you from Dentist on Demand. I am super thrilled, super excited to have with me the talented Lisa Philp from Transitions Group of North America. Hi, Lisa, how are you?
I'm great, Tyler. Great to be here.
Like that intro? Thank you so much for being on this podcast. I know it was a little short notice, so I sort of wanted to grab you when I could. I understand you're in Vancouver. I wanted to have you in my studio. I'm kind of bummed I couldn't. Obviously, with COVID protocols and everything that's going on, we want to obviously make sure we keep each other safe, right? So I want to dive right in. I'm going to read a quick bio on you, if that's okay, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, so Lisa Philp, RDH. Lisa is the Chief Visionary Officer. I love that title, by the way. And founder of TGNA, that's the Transitions Group North America, a full-service coaching company for dentistry. Her career began in clinical hygiene. However, she quickly transitioned into a world-class coach, creating a periodontal disease management program in which she coached thousands of dental professionals. Lisa is an industry leader, author, consultant, coach, and speaker, providing insights to dentists and their teams on practice development and industry changes. Through Lisa's leadership, TGNA has developed into one of dentistry's premier full-service practice development companies, providing practice management solutions for dentists and dental teams through coaching, training, mentorship, and support. That is a lot.
Yeah, it's like a eulogy.
How long has Transitions been around for, Lisa?
Actually, 20 years. Transitions has been around since the late 80s, but I've been the entrepreneur and owner for 20 years this year. It kind of got overshadowed with the pandemic. Yeah, 2020 is our 20th anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of dental professionals.
I bet, yeah, there's a lot of people. So you're touching practices all around North America?
Yeah, predominantly right now, Canada.
Yeah. Focusing
on Canada and how to get them through surviving COVID.
Okay, yeah. And on that topic, let's just jump right in. I want to obviously be mindful of your time. I sort of want to get as much out of you as I can, if that's okay.
Sure.
So COVID, here we are. I mean, what are we, 7 months into this now?
Yeah, it's COVID day 200, Tyler.
Today's day 200. Okay, wow. That's
big anniversary.
I've been spending way too much time in this house.
I know.
So you recently did a Thrive session for us, for Henry Schein.
Yeah.
And just to sort of keep things straight, I have my own my own website that I help promote my clients on, called Dentist on Demand. We do sort of this podcast on Dentist on Demand, but I am a Henry Schein representative as well, so I sort of straddle that fence. So last week you did a Thrive session for us, and you talked about, you provided an overview of the 6-step journey that will return your practice to pre-pandemic revenues and beyond, protecting your business value. That tag at the end, protecting your business value, that sort of caught my attention. So, can you tell us a little bit about that? Are you seeing our practice evaluations a little bit at risk with what's going on? What do you see there?
Well, I think, not being from necessarily the broker side of it, but working with a lot of different buyers that value practices, I think probably COVID would be used for them to reduce their multipliers and what they're offering for practices, mainly because there was an interruption of revenue for some practices 3, 4, 5, 6 months. But as far as the long-term value, with dentistry being a goodwill business, meaning 80% of the value is in your patient base and your relationship and your services with your patients, patients are coming back to the dentist. I think, a decade ago, we went through dentistry being recession-proof, and it really was recession-proof. And I think now, if the practices that didn't sit around for 4 months and not think about anything, that were proactive, followed, how do they get ready to reopen? We did a reopening checklist that had over 10,000 downloads. So people really wanted to get back to work. And I think you take a profession of such high IQ and intellect and you put uncertainty, every day was different. I love that. I'm living the dream with the change. I love change, but I think the uncertainty of, how long was this going to last? It started out as a health issue. It's moved to a political issue, as you see, and now it's become a financial issue. So I think all of those things can be overcome if the practice does what it's supposed to do, and it's communicate. The patients are returning to dentistry. I think we are pleasantly surprised how many people missed the dentist when they did shut down. The dentists that kept operating is because they proactively had the equipment, the PPE. They got qualified as an emergency practice, but still not up to the revenues or the production like they did before, because we know hygiene, it was a big hit to dentistry being considered a non-essential service. And I think if there's anything for us to learn from this, we've got to fight to be part of an essential service of healthcare.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think when hygiene programs are are shut down, that's the lifeblood of the practice that not only feeds the future, but also helps cover the overhead and keeps the patient retention going. So I think as far as the values go, sure, they might, reduce their multipliers. Depends who you're talking to. There's corporate, there's investors, there's solo practitioner buyers. But at the end of the day, if a practice can end 2020 and be close to their pandemic-proof revenues of the previous years, and then show into 2021 for the first 6 to 9 months that they're back up to pre-COVID production plus some growth, then there'll be no reason to take any less value in when a dentist goes to sell.
Right. And when you talk about the essential service part of it, like, is there sort of a law, like a campaign, like lobbying the government? Like, how's that actually playing out?
Yeah. So, right now, dentistry's got so much supervision. They've got public health, they've got their colleges, their associations, and then the government, right? The government that can call a shutdown at any time. So I think there are some surveys going around, some petitions, petitions on let's fight to get dentistry recognized as an essential service. And that's appealing to the government. So right now, I think the government's got so many other things they're dealing with. It's not getting a lot of attention. But I do think once we get past this last quarter, that would be our mandate, is to fight to be considered an essential service, even because we are the safest, most sterile infection control place on earth. I mean, Right now I'd have heart surgery in a dental office. I've never seen such sterile environments. Dentistry has done a great job with infection control. And you know what, Tyler, if you think about it, even when AIDS came out, like SARS, cross-contamination of a disease in a dental practice is extremely rare, if at all.
It doesn't happen, does it? No.
It doesn't happen. So I think we have to be able to, aerosols or non-aerosols, the dentists, they're amazing. They did everything they were supposed to. They went above what their college guidelines, closing their rooms, whether it's temporarily, their air filtrations. The millions of dollars spent on air quality in this country for dentistry is staggering. So I think dentists, they want to work. They didn't know what to do without working. So I think, how do we protect from being considered? We need to be classified essential service because we are the highest level of IPAC. And when I say this, I'm not generalizing. I'm generalizing in who I have the privilege of being exposed to, which is 5,000 different dental practices over COVID survival, because we basically Transitions decided when the shutdown happened to become dentistry's first responders and be an essential service. And basically every day for the last 6 months, we've been putting out tips, suggestions, ideas, support. It's funny. People always ask me, what was the most relevant thing, or you judge what's relevant and what you do by how your customer, the profession, uses it. And the sewing gown pattern was like the most popular tip.
Right.
And I didn't even know what a sewing machine was. It's funny. Someone sent it in, and we had dental hygienists at home sewing gowns, because gowns were very difficult to get. You can't.
Absolutely. On the supplier side, I mean, my phone just blew up. It's still blowing up. Like now gloves are an issue.
Yeah. So we've got a threat of gloves and wipes because the nitrile factories are reducing their production, and that's going to be a really big thing. And I think, you know what, too, we've got to keep dentistry profitable too, right? I mean, they're not a nonprofit. They're probably more worried about their bottom line right now but when year end comes and they look at their profit and loss and they look, where did some of the expenses go up?
Mhm.
I think as long as they're doing it wisely and they're thinking ahead, the ones that get lost are the ones that wait till the last minute,
Yeah.
right?
And it's tricky because, I mean, we, you know, on the supply side of things, we do try to keep a just-in-time inventory, you know, to, you know, at least help our clients do that as best we can. And it's challenging because right now is probably not the time to be doing that with gloves and masks and gowns.
Right. Well, it's a global shortage. It's out of our control, right? It's a shortage everywhere. So I think, how do we stay ahead of the curve, and how do we not right now not get so caught up in what it is we're spending, because there's ways that we'll recoup that next year.
Right.
There are ways to do that. And I mean, increasing fees or charging a PPE, different practices do different things. But I think right now it's focus on the top line. We can focus on expenses all we want, but they're fixed for the most part, right? We have to have them. But if we focus on the top line, and I can say never before has dentistry needed to have a strategy, focus on what's important, a strategy, and setting some goals with involving the team.
So can you talk a little bit about that? So when you're talking about top line, are you talking about growth, or you're focusing mostly on strategy in terms of, like, I think you went through your 6-step journey for COVID proofing your practice. Is that sort of where you're going there?
Yeah, I'm talking the optimal optimizing your clinical production with your providers as one entity. We know it's not just that, but working on blocking scheduling. You know, setting, for years we've been teaching block scheduling and engineering your schedule. Well, now it's not an option. You've got different procedures you've got to put in. You've got dentists going to hygiene less for examinations. And the dentist that does tooth dentistry that depends on hygiene exams, 8 to 10 a day, to diagnose the restorative procedures for the future on small procedures, are having a big challenge. There's got to be a way where we can do more comprehensive treatment planning in a hygiene exam, at least for a year at a time, for their strategy, diagnose it, and then let them go through the cycle, through the practice. And then if anything changes, we can involve our doctor. But I think hygiene exams on the fly are reduced a lot because of all the donning, doffing, getting, you have to, going from room to room in a big chaotic mess is what's not possible right now.
It's gone now. Yeah. So are you saying more of a comprehensive exam at the start of the process? And
yeah,
then...
so a lot of, we've for decades, we've talked about update complete oral evaluations or dental physical on patients of record, okay, every 3 to 5 years. But if they weren't going to even go that far, even doing an annual perio examination where all the radiographs, the documentation, and the doctor exam are at the same time, and then that patient doesn't need to see the doctor for a hygiene exam for a year unless anything changes.
Okay.
Right. So it's a system, right?
Yeah, you're putting all the components together at the beginning. It's almost like you're setting up a treatment plan for the year to say,
exactly,
you know what, we're not just going to get you the next 3 months or 6 months. We're going to get you through the next year and do it all up front, so we minimize visits.
Right. And don't have to have the doc. And you know what? Dentists not having interruptions for hygiene exams are producing more than they've ever produced with their own 2 hands before. They're in a closed room. No one can bother them through their aerosol procedures. Their speed's gone up, their skill, because they don't have all the interruptions. So I think dentistry was ready for a reset on this, on the busyness factor of one dentist having to be in 5 rooms in one 60-minute period. Now it's how they strategically structure it, and how, if they go to annual hygiene treatment plans, then the patients, it's really interesting. And this is feedback that we get as we do our town halls and work with the industry and the profession. Patients are wanting to have more dentistry done per appointment. So tooth dentistry to quadrant dentistry, been talking about for a decade, is now going to be what's really going to be the key, and patients are actually accepting it. So if you come in today and you have three procedures that you need, and I say to you, you can have them all done at once, or you can have them done one at a time. I mean, from a health perspective, we need to reduce the exposures as much as we can. The triage and workup for a patient before they arrive in the administrative office is a lot more work than it's ever been before.
Right.
Right. So I think more dentistry per appointment, longer appointments. And when you do annual hygiene treatment planning, and you can plan out for the year, that's possible. Instead of a patient saying yes to one filling coming in 6 months and then they have another one, right? It's letting them know, here's everything that's possible. Would you like to have it done in longer appointments, less frequency of visits?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's smart. It seems like it almost seems to me like when we get through this, dentistry is going to be a little more efficient.
Yes, yes. And maybe they won't need me. Maybe they won't need us. I mean, if dentistry did what we said, that we wouldn't have a job. So not because we have all the answers. It's just efficiency is pretty predictable. The systems in dentistry really haven't changed that much as far as how to run your playbook, how to do your daily operations, your startup, your tracking, all those different things. I think what it is now, the practices that were successful by accident or didn't pre-plan or just took each day as I'm trying to make it through the day of dentistry, I'll come tomorrow. They're the ones that are finding the biggest change.
Well, yeah, and I some of the feedback I'm getting, because my day-to-day is with dentists all day long, and I do hear this from time to time, is that it feels like they're working harder to get the same amount of production done. So, and that's not a slam on anyone. That's not saying that they're not being prepared or they're not doing things that are prescribed or whatever. But I think that there's an adjustment period where the office is like, okay, well, we're just trying to get our hands around, get our heads around the process. And I mean, it's been a few months now, so I think a lot of people are a lot of people do have their heads wrapped around the process. But I think I like where you're going with this, have the strategy in place, have that protocol in place, make sure you know what your roadmap is going to be so that you can eliminate any sort of superfluous, can't even say it, any extraneous, let's try that word, trips into different rooms or any sort of energy that's not being spent efficiently on treating the patient and getting from point A to point B as fast as possible.
Yeah. And I think too, you're right. It's pre-planning, right? It's thinking about things before they happen, planning them out, engineering, getting a team approach. The team needs to be involved. And I think in the beginning when dentistry reopened, the stage of change of storming was all this screening, documentation, contact tracing, all those different things. So, when I put out really quickly an e-learning course on the COVID cycle of care, and that helped get dental team members trained before they came back to work. So you have the equipment, all the equipment to work, but it's not just filling white space. We can't just fill white space anymore. All the days of putting a C for confirmed, and maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Now you cannot. We've seen huge increase in true confirmations because a patient has to be screened before they enter your practice.
Right. So no-shows are probably down, right?
Well, no-shows and cancellations, yes. I think what happens, the patients that watch the media, right, who loves to put fear, right? Fear in them.
Currency.
Sometimes call and challenge us to say, why should I still come? Is it safe? It's so much communication. That's another thing that's probably stressing out dental teams, but it's necessary. They say, I told them 100 times. I say, tell them 10 more. You've got to keep communicating your safety. And it's interesting. I don't know if anyone predicted this, and this is your world of new patient acquisition, marketing, and growth. A lot of patients are moving practices if they don't feel like it's safe enough.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's never, I would have never predicted it, right? You know what, I went there and they didn't do like hardly anything. It didn't look different. I'm going to go somewhere where it's like I really believe that they have it going. They have the COVID screening in place. They do the right sterilization. And a lot of it isn't, I don't think that the dentist office doesn't do it. They just aren't communicating it, Tyler. Right. They're not putting it on their website. They're not using their social media, right? They're not accessing. And for 30 years, I've been in dentistry. Every dentist in the first 5 minutes talked to me about new patients. I want new patients. I've never seen new patients be pushed aside like this ever.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I'm, as you know, I'm pretty steeped in deeply in entrenched, I should say, in social media and watching what people are doing, helping my clients create their story, whether it's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is. And I see now, for me, of course, I'm seeing story after story after story about PPE, and I'm getting sick of it because it's the world I live in. So I'm like, oh my God, if I see another person, showing their gown and their mask, I'm gonna jump out the window. However, I'm not their audience, right? I'm the person saying you should be doing that because, like you say, you need to be communicating this to your patients.
Over communicate.
Over communicating. I mean, like Katrina, my wife, she's amazing. We go to the same dentist. I go there in a heartbeat, right? Doesn't bother me. I'm like, whatever, let's just get it on. Like, let's put the mask on and away we go. Because I'm in a dental office every day, all day, every day. It doesn't bother me one iota. My wife, on the other hand, is like, well, is it safe? Or like, I love my dentist. I love going there. I love the team, but how safe is it? Yeah. And I'm her husband. And I'm like, it is so safe. You could probably eat off the floor. You're good. Yeah. And so I get it, right? So she's married to a dental rep who's telling her, who's imploring her, go, it's fine. And she is. She's cool with that. She just wants to make sure she's taking the appropriate steps. So I totally understand the mentality where, you know what? I hate to say it, but yeah, get out there, get in front of the camera, have your team showing the patient base, hey, look at the steps that we're taking to make sure you're safe. It's the biggest theme happening on social media in dentistry, but it does need to happen. I think you're totally right. And if you're not communicating that, it leaves room for the patient to walk in and go, okay, well, now I'm starting to question the practice. No one's really communicating to me as to what they're doing here.
Yeah,
I think I see an air purifier over there.
Leave it to their imagination.
Right. So, and if your mind runs idle, we know where that goes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the patient confidence, it's coming back. There's probably going to be 20, 30% that are going to probably postpone until they say this is over. I don't know if it's ever going to be over, but I think that's pretty normal anyways with recalls and reactivations. Those are going to be the people that put it off anyways, right?
Well, but so are you seeing a lot of hesitation to come back then? I heard
I kind of, without having any statistical evidence, I think there's probably 25 or 30% of the patients that are afraid still.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. But you know what? When you look at a practice with 2,000 active patients, you've got maybe a couple of hundred that want to put it off, want to prolong it. I'll wait till the COVID's gone. I'll wait till the pandemic's over. Like I said, their behavior before COVID was probably in that essence anyways. Right. Now, if I said to someone yesterday, I go, let me guess, due to COVID, you're going to give me that. Everything's like due to COVID. I said, we can't use this as an excuse forever, for everything, right? For everything. So I think you take 70, 80% of your active patients, you get them back in the schedule now. And that is critical. That's the goodwill. That's the retention, because you don't want to take a chance they get convinced to go somewhere else. Yeah. Or they fall out of care, and you're going to have more healthcare, dental services to provide. But I think that the key focus is the reactivation effort, and that's outbound, and that's uninterrupted time. That's using software. That's using. I mean, right now, dentistry. You talk about efficiency, Tyler. Dentistry has to automate. Artificial intelligence, where it's going to come in. We must automate these. We have a massive, and BC is the worst province right now for shortage of auxiliary. Right. Yeah. And if we have a shortage for people, we've got to be efficient with automation, not to replace the people.
Okay, so let's go into that a little bit. So automation. So recall. Obviously
dashboard metrics. Having your dashboard metrics, right? Knowing what your metrics of your practice are, and having an artificial intelligence to be able to go into your practice management system and pull out what's relevant so you can focus on that and get a team approach. But yes, automating recall, electronic messaging, texting, emails, the practices that weren't collecting emails and texts, believe it or not, there's lots of them, gotten a bit really stuck when this happened because they had no way to communicate out to their patient base.
Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing it. I've got a few clients. We're trying to get them back up to speed where didn't even have a website. Where I'm like, okay, let's get a website first. Yeah. Just spend $1,000 and build one on GoDaddy. I'll help you, right? Like, let's get that started. And but again, that's sort of we're like, well, I didn't really need it. I guess now I need it. I'm like, yeah, it's a communication tool now. It's not just a storefront. It's more of a communication tool. It's where you're going to house all your collateral.
Critical.
So that people know where to go so that they can find the information about you and what you're doing to keep them safe.
Yeah. And I think a practice without a website, with the sophistication of, the sophistication of the consumer, but also The public's ready for virtual. Like, look at Zoom stocks, right? I mean, they're ready for virtual. I think so when I talk about automation, virtual consults, that's going to be a game changer. I'm focusing with my team for a year on that.
That's great.
Increasing case acceptance at a higher dollar amount at the comfort of their own home with their decision maker, doing virtual consults. That's when people said to somebody yesterday, said, what's the most exciting to you? I said that.
That's awesome.
Because you know what? A dentist, and it's interesting, dentists are telling me when they have time to diagnose without the pressure of a 3 to 5 minute judgment of a patient conversation, their diagnoses are much more thorough.
You know what? And it's exactly what we found. So with Dentist on Demand, we're setting up virtual consult portals for our clients. And the feedback we're getting is that first of all, they start the conversation, right? You're right out of the gate, you're building a relationship, you're establishing trust. And then we're talking about, what you would like to see, what procedure or what you want. Let's get down to, are we looking at a more some comprehensive dentistry? Are we looking at cosmetic? What is it? Why are we talking on Zoom today?
Yeah.
And it really sort of opens up that dialogue between the dentist and the patient to say, you know what, it's not just about the drilling and filling. We're talking more about how do you want this to be enhanced? Is there something here that we can do to improve that? And I'm telling you, it seems to be, and I don't know what it is about COIS, but my COIS trained dentists, they're really jumping on this.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is with COIS too, and I've been teaching this for years, actually. I should send it to you, Tyler. I've got an e-course on how the 6 steps, you know me, I'm steps, circuits, phases, stages, whatever, right? That's how systems work, but how to do a virtual consult. And I'll tell you, when you talk about COIS has a deep training in interviewing. Truly, case acceptance, your ability to get a yes, is the depth in which you master interview a human before you tell them what's going on in their mouth.
Okay.
And if you think of it, you go onto a virtual consult in someone's home and you know their vision of their next 3 to 5 years with their oral health. You know what their goals for their teeth, their mouth, and their smile are. You get a feel of what their understanding of what's going on in their oral health, and then you can show them ways with whoever they want there. And it's important to remember, just like I try to tell the teachers, you're teaching right now to our whole household.
Right.
Whether you, with this virtual school, my daughter's half school, half not, it's like crazy. But I think we in dentistry, we want to put the family on the couch. We'll talk to you. Yeah. We'll show you. And you can put up visuals, you can share screens, you could show other before and afters. I'm really excited. And I can't wait to work with you on this. On really developing this. I don't, a big change in dentistry is the model of taking a patient for their diagnosis and treatment plan in the clinical and escorting them to a treatment coordinator to sit in a separate environment, knee to knee. That's lost. We're contactless experience. Yeah. So we have to have another way to do it. We can't just keep letting people leave saying, when COVID's over, we'll tell you what's best and how much it costs.
Totally. And I like where you're going with that. If you're putting a course together for that or some kind of training module, that is massive for me, because the early adopters, my guys who got onto virtual consulting back in May and June, the feedback I got, like when I remember my own dentist, I said, hey, let's set you up, let's get you going on this. I'm not sure how it's going to work just yet, but I think there's something here. So we did it, and he sort of, I saw the light bulb go off, and he's like, yes, you know what, I know exactly how I'm going to use this now. And he said, Ty, I just need to get my reps in, because there's no curriculum for it. So he's like, I don't know what to do, but he's like, I'm pretty sure I can figure it out. So he's like, I just need to get maybe 10, 15 consults under my belt so then I can kind of shape it myself. And I'm like, man, I wish there was a course.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will share that with you. It's how you frame it, how you do your framing, how you introduce it, how you review what's important to them. Like, there's a very strategic way to do it. And, we've been teaching it knee to knee for a long time, but this is now a way for the dentist and the treatment coordinator or whoever they have with them. The key here is the virtual consult and the intellect and the treatment plan and the conversation needs to be simple. We know that, right? Not to talk in jargon. But then if the dentist leaves the Zoom meeting, then the person left, then the treatment coordinator or their colleague the auxiliary with them can then do the financial arrangements. The key here is I still stand by the steadfast belief a dentist doing their own financial arrangements is not going to be ideal. I'm not saying they can't, not saying some aren't really good at it. I'm just saying that's where you can still keep the separation between here's what's best for your health and then here's the financial investment. And then a dentist can leave that consult and go to something else that only a dentist can do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And having block times, right? I said block a half a day. That's your virtual consults. You know when you have to do your workups, right? So I just worked with a dentist Friday from 9 till 2. They're setting up that's going to be their blocked schedule for virtual consults. And then the auxiliary and treatment coordinator know how to get the case worked up, get it all prepared. And then, you have to use the technology the patient has. Not for some reason, not everyone has Zoom. There's other technologies you'd probably know better than this. Some people are concerned with security. I think Zoom's probably figured that out.
Well, just to touch on that real quick. So the Zoom we're using right now, it's a HIPAA compliant Zoom.
Okay.
So as I'm getting email alerts, so you can get just a regular Zoom, like a free one, and it's not secure. Basically, it's secure to the level where
that's great to know.
99% of you aren't going to get hacked. However, if you and I are doing a virtual consult right now, you're the dentist, I'm the patient, and there's medical information being exchanged. There's a HIPAA compliant version of Zoom, which you have to pay for. And that's why a lot of people don't have it, because it's not cheap. So the portal you and I are talking on is you could be the dentist right now talking to me. You can't record it. It gets scrambled, so no one can actually break in and hack it. So that's the difference. So, and there's a couple different, these virtual consult platforms are coming out of the woodwork left, right, and center. We just stuck with something fairly basic, fairly simple. It means everyone knows how to use Zoom. We just make sure that it's HIPAA compliant version and we move forward.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be complex, right? And I think, when is the last time, when has a dentist ever had 30 minutes just to sit and talk, not just to sit and talk, review the findings, talk about what's best and answer the questions without being in a hurry? Yeah. It's working.
It's refreshing, right?
It's working. And, someone says, I got to ask my husband. That's all taken out of the equation, because you say, we'd like anyone that's involved in the decisions about your healthcare to be on this call. So the patient's not sent home to do a treatment presentation to their spouse or to someone else that's going to help them pay for it. That's really making a big difference. They're hearing it all in real time together.
Yeah, that's great. Getting all the decision makers in the call, that's important.
Well, think, Ty, too, even if my husband couldn't be here today and you're presenting to me a significant case, we're recording. What's to say that I couldn't have him watch the dentist present it on video, as opposed to tell them what the dentist said and then they die at the price? Right? Yeah. Like coming home and telling your wife you just spent $10,000 and she's like, what? Without talking to me? Right? It doesn't happen.
It shows up on a credit card bill, right?
Yeah, if you want to stay married, you usually don't do that. But I think there's lots of benefit to that. I think I worked with a company to develop an app just to get the screening electronic when people weren't knowing how to get the screening without all the paper. And practice is still doing the manual screening, or they're struggling because it takes a long time. They're chasing the patient. They're making they have to. I remember when we used to send out new patient welcome packages and put the medical history in it and say, fill this out in your own home and bring it with you.
Good luck.
Right? Maybe 20% compliance by the keeners, right?
Yeah.
But I think we've got to automate. We've got to automate as much as we can. We can't rely on practice management systems to do that. They're pretty stagnant in how they're performing right now. But there's so many other things that can be added on with security, or pull data out of that. I look at it as here's every patient you've ever seen and all their data. You want to have relevant softwares and automation to be able to pull out information that focuses tasks on relevancy.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So what we did, just to quickly touch on that, is there's a company that out of the US called FormStack. And they've got this incredible form building platform. and healthcare is a big component of what they do. So you can actually subscribe to a FormStack account. And so the way we've constructed it is if you go on a listing at Dentist on Demand, or we can put the widget on the dentist website as well, and they push the book a virtual consultation button, the window will pop up and you'll have the first data capture page, which is just your basic information. From there, they can actually click on now you can fill out your medical history form. Once it goes into the medical history form, that is now a HIPAA compliant portal.
Right.
So, and then that creates a digital workflow that's all secure. And it basically creates a healthcare workflow, all contactless e-forms that are all HIPAA compliant as well.
Right.
So we spent a lot of time looking for something like that.
Yeah, that's great.
I know that there's a number of dentists in the States that are using it, and I don't know if it integrates into Dentrix, but I know they're using FormStack with Dentrix,
Right.
To migrate that information. But you can basically have those custom forms. So you can customize the forms in accordance with your own brand. Then it'll transfer the information over into a HIPAA compliant portal that only you have access to. And then it'll actually migrate that information into documents as well.
Right.
So it's a pretty slick software. And the reason I speak about it is because I've been really looking closely at it over the last few months. And I think they're kind of leading the pack in that area right now.
No, that's great to know. Great.
Yeah,
I can say there's not lack of people that want to help dentistry, from softwares to AI to all different things. And I think because social distancing in dentistry doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. So I think if we have contactless patient experience, patients paying at the chair on auto pay, what's to say you know what, you can use your Google Pay, your Apple Pay, paying before you leave. I do find a lot of practices wanting to go off assignment. I say to dentistry, if you're going to make a big change you've always wanted to make, now is the time to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be the most accepted. Someone said, why should we raise our fees now? Why not wait till the fee guide? I said, well, you're raising your fees 2 to 3% to help offset your PPE costs. And there'll be less notice now than a year from now. You know what I mean? So not that
somewhat justified.
Not that we're here to trick and manipulate, but we've got to stay viable. Dentistry needs to stay viable on all fronts. And I see a lot of burnout with the teams, right? The burnouts, we got to keep the morale up. The team is who communicates to the patient. If the team feels safe, they'll transfer that to the patient. But I think it's time never before has a dentist had to lead. And they had to, think about it, the shutdown, I look at I look at the opportunity in things. The shutdown, for the first time, dentists got to work on their business, not in it. And the ones that went, wow, when have you ever had weeks to think about your processes, to think about the things you want to fix, think about the things you want to tweak? They don't get that luxury, right? So I think we're coming back. I think if the practice isn't building, though, by the end of this year, at least to pre-COVID production numbers, there's going to be some jeopardy and threats to them with patient numbers. So knowing how many active patients, how many people are you getting that are new? You never stop growing. Right? Never stop growing. And then making sure they have all, it's not an option not to have a website and social media and electronic contact. It's just not an option right now. And to be able to utilize what the whole world's getting used to sitting and looking at faces on video calls.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't even going back to their workplace till next year, if that.
That's crazy. It's just mind blowing that they're like, okay, I'm just, 2020, I'm done. I'll come back to it when the smoke settles. Is that?
I think 2020 being over, it's a past you can't change, and it becomes history. So many people want to be part of a historical event and don't realize you're in one. You're in one right now. We're making history. And I am determined. I'm committed that dentistry will be considered pandemic proof by 6 months into 2021. And it's all by measurements. And that which we measure gets better. right? I think, a dentist saying, oh, I don't need to set goals. I'm not in it for the money. My practice just kind of runs. They're the ones having the hardest time.
Mm.
You've got to build your team. You've got to train them. Training has never been more critical. We've been a training company for 20 years. We've reinvented our complete training to not be in person, right? We've got our learning management system with our 12 courses being launched next week on basics for dental auxiliary to learn on their own time.
That was going to be my next question. I wanted to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, I think online learning between e-courses that are accredited, that have certificates, it's a great way for a dentist to leverage training. I mean, the days of coming to a dental practice and shutting down for half a day with a flip chart in the reception room to learn something, that's not feasible anymore.
Right.
So the reset on this is, how do we teach content and knowledge to dental auxiliaries who need it, right? And how do they do it, when I say on their own time, in small chunks with measured retention, measured scoring? They can use it for all their continuing education to get the basics. Then the uniqueness in the application comes from the management strategy, or in our case with our coaching strategy. That's where you take and never before have I had a chance to put the ideal practices into a course learning format based on how adults learn. So this has been a lot. This is all things you think of doing, but you don't have time when you're running your business on a daily operation. But when our customers stopped working, right, I said, okay, so we can stop working with them, right?
Yeah.
Or we can be the hope, the strategy, raise the bar, get them ready to reopen bigger and better than they ever were. And the ones that put the effort in, Tyler, they're doing great.
So you actually have 12 different courses now that you've developed?
Yeah, okay. On Transitions University, it's going to be launched. They're finished. Now it's just launching them next week. Okay. And what we did is I chose the COVID cycle of care is a time relevant thing. Okay. So we did that, got that out quickly so that dentists didn't have to do like hours of training of how public health wants you to do this COVID cycle of care.
Right.
That's how public health wants dentistry to treat a patient. The rest of them are relevant to what we did with this pandemic proofing program. Is we went back to 500 dental practices we worked with and said, what's the bare minimum every practice must do, not only to survive, but if they focus on what's relevant, they build that in the current times. And that's where we got our 6 key areas. Right, our 6 key areas, from 6 key areas, steps, whatever pivot points. I mean, you can call them anything you want, but if we don't focus on what's important and what's relevant, we're going to be back to the way we were of just coming in and hoping we get through a day and being productive and efficient. But I think it takes a team approach. Can't be just the dentist. The dentist now is in a room with no disturbing while they're doing aerosol procedures, loving it.
Yeah, and he's probably like, I'm here, I'm focused, I have no interruptions. This is amazing. This is what I went to school to do, right?
Well, remember, 99% of them just want to be a dentist.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be someone that travels to hygiene 3 to 4 times an hour.
Yeah.
They have to do it.
They have to do it.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So you sort of touched on all the different courses that are coming up. So I'd love to get some of that collateral from you. If you can send it to me, that'd be great. That way we can feature it on my website. I can e-blast it out through MailChimp or whatever. Because I'm seeing a lot of these words. I mean, going into different stages in this document on rebuild is your practice pandemic proof. So I mean, a lot of the words I'm seeing are stages and engineer, identify, stagger, all these great words. I mean, this is really kind of, they're nice action words too, to say, here's sort of the next step in the process for you to get you to the next juncture, right?
And really this forced dentistry to stop thinking about things and do them.
Right. Yeah.
And I say, what can we take a picture or tape record that you've done as a behavior change to get what you deserve? Not what did you think about? Because you know how brilliant dentistry is brilliant, right? They do a lot of reading, they get a lot of knowledge, but knowledge means nothing if you don't apply it to your own goals and your own vision. And I think, from the team and managing change the leader leading, to optimizing production and how you schedule, how we engineer, how we plan the schedule. So we no longer say, when do you want to come, Mr. Patient? We never ask that again. We say, we have this time and this time reserved. Which one can you fit into your life?
In the hygiene chair.
And restorative. Because
they
have to engineer a patient, a provider, and a procedure now. Labeled for different levels of risk. And then if there's a procedure, see, dentistry always worked in a silo, Tyler, like a farm with 6 silos, your peas, your corn, right? Yeah. Now they have to look across each hour, across all the silos, and they have to do it in advance.
So that's a big change. Am I right?
Like, been teaching it for 20 years, and the practices that do it, even before this, we've been teaching engineering and blocking the schedule. But it's now you have to, not because I say so, because you've got different chairs, you've got different rooms allocated, you've got different airflow in this room, depending on how they set up their environment. So they've got to match the facility with the provider, with the particular procedure. So just having a schedule that says filling or crown no longer works. Detailing, there's so many different steps to this. So a lot of our e-learning courses are on all the little things to pay attention to, because sometimes 2 or 3 little things can create efficiency that has a 10-fold outcome.
Yeah, because before, like we were looking at, in the courses that you've taught us at Shine, I try to keep it very basic, very simple, and say, look, you know what, you get your hygiene appointment, you're pre-appointing in the chair, you're making sure that the patient doesn't walk out of the practice without their next appointment, right? On the most basic level.
Yes, and 25 years, honey, 25 years, I would say.
Right, and you've ingrained that in our heads. So for me to think, okay, if I'm in a dental practice and I have this new workflow, and now that is completely out the window, this automated pre-appoint in the chair idea. It might work for some, but now it's all over the map. Like, you're pre-appointing at, like you said, at restorative. Maybe there's at different points in the system. It just seems like the whole thing is just kind of like melded into kind of a moving, like evolving ball of production. Yeah. Where you do need these strategies and these structures in place to help you make sure you're actually keeping the patient engaged in the process.
And they need to be attached. So remember too, dentistry lost months of pre-scheduling in March, April, May. So when you hear, like I'm starting to hear, our hygiene looks wide open. I said, because you didn't pre-book 6 months ago, right. We lost those patients coming into pre-schedule. You always still pre-schedule. Right. And I will always believe it's better to be done in the clinical room, but right now it has to be, because them stopping at the front desk is harder in a contactless experience, right? So I think, but we missed all those pre-bookings. So going back and saying, what are all those patients, not only that we didn't see and had to cancel, that's catch up. So that was the first couple of months, right? And they were swamped. Like, we're so busy, I need to add hygiene days. I go, wait till your catch-up subsides. Then you do your reactivation of all the people that aren't attached to your practice with an outbound, let's get you in our schedule.
This is important.
It's everything. We don't have a patient that sees us at their dental practice and shows up 2 to 5 times a year. We have no dental practice.
And it's important for me because we get busy too, right? So we all went into hibernation for a couple months, whatever we did. And then everything started coming back. And then everybody got crazy busy. Yeah. Right? We're all trying to find PPE. Yeah, we're all trying to find PPE. A lot of our clients are trying to just get through the dentistry, trying to get through this massive backlog. And now, are we looking forward 6 months and going, okay, well, once we get through the backlog, where are we going to be?
Yes, and if we don't plan now, we're going to not be in a good place.
Right.
Right? And if we don't it's outbound. It's not just waiting, right? Any business coach would tell you, a business that depends on word of mouth referrals only is not scalable, right? So dentistry has to go outbound, where they might not have had to before, because their schedules were full, they were maintaining it each day. But not only do they have to go outbound, but it also protects that patient staying in their practice. They can have a chance to explain the changes. Mm-hmm. right? And, getting them on their social media. Like we've got to have the, marketing's marketing, and it's always needed. But I'd say, don't think if the word marketing is what gets you all like in a tizzy. It's your critical communication source.
Absolutely.
To the people that are yours, to go with who brung you, go back to the patients who are part of your practice, get 80% of them booked in the schedule. And they can do that because they've now got their engineered schedule. And then the restorative work through increased case acceptance will come.
Mm-hmm. And I talk a lot. We do content creation at Dentist on Demand as well,
Right.
Which you and I've talked about, and I'm sure we'll talk about in further detail. And I have my clients ask me, okay, well, can you manage my content? Like, of course I can. You gotta tell me what you want to say. But I just say, look, let's just get back to basics. Let's make this really simple. Okay, who are you? What's your story?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And the great thing now, try to look at the silver lining here, is that it's kind of helping us write the script a little bit, because due to COVID, and I hate to say that, we do have a bit of a storyline that we can utilize to tell the story about what's happening in your practice. So the storyline's there, it's written. All you have to do is say, look, here's what we're doing. Let's put it out there. And I can help tell that story. You and I can help tell that story to their audience, their patient base. And just make sure that content, even if when you talk about marketing, people getting in a tizzy, I think people get in a tizzy when they look at content creation and social media as well. Because they're like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's fine. I'll help you with that.
People that'll do that for you.
Right. People will do it for you. But I'm like, let me, you're already paying me for your supplies. Let me at least push you down the road and help you, start very simple.
Yeah.
People that come to me through Dentist on Demand or through Henry Schein or whatever it is, it just has to be a very basic storyline of who you are and what you're doing in the practice. We don't need to conjure up you don't need to do a TikTok dance.
No.
Right. You don't need to have some crazy theme day or whatever. Sure, it's cool. Like there's a lot of great content that people put out there that's very creative, and I admire it. It's awesome. But at the end of the day, the patient, wants to know that there's a competent dentist and a competent dental team at that office, and I'm going to be safe. Yeah. Let's start with the basics.
Yeah. And I think this is the time too. It's not very Canadian to blow your own horn.
Right.
But I say go 4 times past your comfort zone in that. And it's not that you're doing anything other than you're over communicating so a patient can overstand, not understand, overstand why you are their choice to stay with or to change to.
Yeah.
Because patients, I think, with everything they know about COVID, they're not going to tolerate not feeling safe. They just won't.
No, they won't. And they won't tell you. They'll just go. They won't tell you.
Well, and that's also Canadian. They break up with us and don't tell us.
Yeah. We get ghosted.
Exactly. But if I break up
right now, they won't return my phone call. What's going on? Yeah. Quickly before we wrap up here, Lisa, this has been awesome. So much good information. I want to try to keep it to an hour because I know you're super busy. IPAC. So I just got, I'm a subscriber to Transitions Group of North America. Thank you for all that wonderful information. You have a new IPAC coach. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, we were in real time meeting the demands of what was needed for dentistry. So having an IPAC specialist, after I took a week studying it, you realize what your unique ability is. And who's someone that's passionate about this, because it changes a lot. So we've got a really good, streamlined, really economical way to get an IPAC manual into an office. And it's interesting. This has been Ontario and Saskatchewan have been Alberta were very, very, very militant about IPAC years ago. BC's now just getting militant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so BC always had IPAC guidelines, but I didn't find a lot of practices got too worked up about it.
Hard to find.
Yes, but now we've got 4 province IPAC sample manuals, very economical. You get on the call with a coach that customizes it for your province. We've delivered about, I think, 30 of them in BC so far. And you can't get caught with an IPAC manual. It just is what it is. And, you know, there's a way to automate it. There's another process, you know, there's another company that automates all the sterilization reprocessing with barcodes and helps automate that, because it's going to be hard to afford a salary just to do infection control.
Right.
It's our pay. We got to manage our payroll, because with shortage, we pay people more. Right. We have to. So I think with the iPad, it's not an if, it's a when, how soon. And it's not because I say so, because BC is going to start doing site audits where they've never done them before.
Is that right?
Yeah. So we've had probably in the East, we've had probably a dozen clients go through an occupational surprise visit, occupational hazard. That's another organization that polices us. Right.
Yeah.
And they've passed with flying colors because they have the documentation. They had the in-service training. You know, I say to them, if you've ever got someone coming, you keep them in the virtual parking lot for about 12 minutes. So you can all calm down and tell them you've got a COVID virtual parking lot. They're not allowed to come to your door until you tell them. That's funny as that sounds. That's getting a big wow factor from the inspectors, right?
Good.
Yeah.
It's the stop factor.
Yeah. And I think don't worry about getting caught. Just make sure you're doing the right things. And IPAC in BC, you know, there's a few differences in different provinces. Like in Alberta and Ontario, they've got to do a test every day. BC, it's once a week. Right. So I think it's, how do you get that if you can't get caught without an IPAC manual in a pandemic?
Okay. So if I was to do my clients a service, I'd be getting on the phone saying, okay, let's make sure everybody has a manual.
Yes. So it's either looking at the one you have and doing a quick audit of it with you. When I say quick, sorry, that nothing's quick in IPAC. It's very detailed, right? But making sure what you've got, it would pass. Or if you don't have one, you got to get something. Like every instrument needs to be documented. Every patient's chart needs to know what the number of their sterilization pouch is, right? Like it's a lot of work.
I'm assuming like the college is sending out information about this stuff too, though. Like, aren't they getting regular correspondence on this type of stuff?
I've been interpreting college releases
I'm
for
guessing.
4 months. Yes, the college has it, but remember, having a document and then applying it into real world, practical, how to do it and not spend all day on your reprocessing of sterilization and documenting in your book the time, the temperature, you know, all the new equipment of sterilizers that have printouts and USBs, that's all part of IPAC too.
Right. So they're like, the information's there. It's not our job to help you execute it. It's all here.
Dentistry's, you know what it is? Dentistry's doing it. Please hear me. I mean, unless you got the guy with the toaster oven that got shut down like 2 years ago, that's a one-off, right? But dentistry does it. It's just, if you don't document it, you didn't do it.
Okay.
No matter how great you are. That's the challenge, right? And I think now more so, if anything ever happened, you know, our risk management now, Tyler's pretty significant, right? We've got risk patient, I believe we've got with COVID risk management. You screen them, right? If you have someone that calls you after the fact, dentistry wears PPE. We don't have to shut the place down, right? Like that part of it, that fear and that chaos has been settled because there's protocols. And dentistry, if dentistry wears their PPE on, basically dentistry's treating almost every patient like they're positive. Right? But it's the team. And, you know, you don't eat lunch together. You got to wear masks with your colleagues. You have one employee that has exposure of positive and they bring it into the workplace and you're not wearing masks. You're not social distancing as much as you can. It can have a serious impact on that practice shutting down because of the employees.
Right. And, you know, it's funny, just an outside experience. I was coaching this morning at 5 a.m. hockey. So I've got a bunch of 11-year-olds out on the ice. And, you know, for the last 10 minutes, I said, we can scrimmage or we can do something fun. And somebody said, let's play some freeze tag, just a fun game. And I started playing freeze tag and I realized how close they were getting to each other. And I blew the whistle quickly and I said, okay, we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Because, you know, with freeze tag, you're kind of grabbing onto each other and stuff. And I was like, holy smokes, you know, it's part of my job as a coach to make sure that everyone's keeping their space as well. So,
well, we're going to see athletes wear masks masks. Like they have to be conditioned now to do their athletics with masks. Volleyball players, dancers, like everyone's got these masks on. And I don't know if this is going to go away anytime soon. And I don't know if a vaccine's going to help, because I know a lot of people that don't want to have COVID put in their body
Right.
with a vaccine, right? We could have fast, rapid testing. That's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for dentistry, it could be a great revenue source, but there's a lot of training needed to be able to do that. And I'm not sure if it's going to be best for dentistry if everyone gets a fast, rapid test. They come 15 minutes early, and this virus, I can test positive. I can test negative today and positive tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. I think it could blow out a lot of schedules. But what I think is going to be dentistry's key is the antibody test to show the people that have antibodies so that we know how to work with them. So it's going to be it's still uncertain, right? Still every day, every week, maybe not as fast as when we were shut down. Mm-hmm. But there's changes all the time.
It's still the headline.
And we have to find a way to live with this virus. We have to find a way. We can't shut down our lives.
Yeah.
And the economy again. We just can't. They'll try. They might try, but
yeah. Is there anything else you want to cover today? This has been fantastic.
No. I think just stay positive and give yourself a break and do the right things that you know.
It's mentally exhausting, isn't it?
It is. It can be.
Yeah, and that's what I find too. Sometimes I get up in the morning and I'm like, man, what is it? Am I physically tired? I'm exercising. I'm eating okay. What is it? And I think a lot of it's just mental, like,
yeah, uncertainty. Right? Remember, it started health, went to politics, financial. Now it's uncertainty. What's going to be next? Is there a second wave? Right? All those different things.
Yeah. We all stay together and we all stay positive. I think we're going to get through it fine.
Yeah. Well, dentistry is needed.
Yeah.
It's a critical part of healthcare. Yeah.
I've been 2 or 3 times, or twice since the pandemic started. So I'm not stopping going to the dentist. I'm a big believer. This has been fantastic. We'll follow up with each other later, and some of the digital solutions as well. I love where you're going with the virtual consults. I totally agree with you. And I know I'm biased because I did build my own sort of portal for it, but I think that there's definitely going to be a whole new frontier with the virtual stuff and the digital forms and the HIPAA compliant stuff is certainly a big factor as well. So I'll be excited to talk to you more about that as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Tyler.
Okay, thank you so much for being on.
Keep your vision.
I got the vision. We're going to keep pushing forward. But I need people like you in my corner, so I appreciate it.
Okay, take care, love.
Thanks, Lisa. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.